Hello, everyone. My name is Paulo Yanez Sarmiento. I'm from Hasso-Plattner Institute at the University of Potsdam in Germany, and I'm going to present you now my poster on sparse explanation of neural networks on genome sequences using Pruned layer-wise relevance propagation. So let me start with a brief introduction. So as you might know, deep learning or deep neural networks have been shown very good performance in the field of genomics for different tasks such as motive detection or pathogenicity prediction. But the problem we often here have is the lack of interpretability. So these models often behave like black boxes, and therefore so-called explanation methods are used. However, in genomics, we often face certain challenges in this context. So we have often high dimensional data, and this data contains higher order feature or motive interactions. Often it's difficult to identify and interpret the most important features for noisy relevance attribution. And in contrast, for example, to image classification, human evaluation via visualization of the relevance attribution is less feasible. So therefore, we propose a modification of the explanation method layer-wise relevance propagation, LRP, that provides sparser explanation. And we also evaluate this new method on convolutional neural networks that were trained on synthetic genomics data with known ground truth. For further details on the model, I refer you to my colleague, Marta Lemanczyk, and her poster here. So here on the top of my figure 1, you can get a brief idea on what I was talking about. So you have those heat maps from images, and you can see on the right that they contain noise, and on the left you see sparsified version of them, such that the most important features get more relevance and are clearer to identify. Okay, let me proceed now with the methodology. So as I said, we aim to modify LRP, and therefore let me give you first a quick recap of LRP. It's a so-called post-hoc explanation method. This means that we assume we already have a trained model, and it decomposes a network's prediction into relevance scores for the input. So this means we have a prediction score, and we would like to allocate scores to the input features such we know which of those features were the most important ones for the prediction. It's input specific. This means that we have a local explanation and not a global explanation of the model. Further, the relevance is propagated backwards from one layer to another. So this kind of explains the name. And I don't want to dive too much into the formulas here, but basically the takeaway here is that the propagation from one layer to another can be written as a matrix multiplication. Okay, now to our modification, pruned layer-wise relevance propagation. So the idea is that we sparsify the explanation by pruning the relevance propagation, and we do this by pruning a certain proportion of the total relevance mass and then redistribute this released mass. So how would this work? So we'd first apply an unrestricted relevance propagation to determine a threshold. We would prune the ones with the lowest relevance scores, and then we would, as I said, redistribute the released mass. So this is basically summarized in those two formulas here. So first finding a threshold, and then applying this threshold, which leads to kicking out a proportion of P of the total relevance mass. Okay, we would also like to evaluate this new method. And as I said, we do this on different convolutional neural networks. As metrics, we use the so-called relevance mass accuracy and relevance rank accuracy. They both are metrics to evaluate explanations with known ground truth data. So the first one measures how much relevance indeed is attributed to the ground truth, and the second one, how many of the top K rated features lie indeed within the ground truth. As we're also interested in sparseness and more general in complexity, we also calculate the Gini index and the entropy to measure sparseness and complexity. So the higher the Gini index, the more sparse we are, and the entropy gives is an indication of the complexity, so whether indeed the relevance is concentrated at only a few features. Okay, let me now proceed with our results and give you a brief outlook. So quantitatively, we see that PLRP, so our modification, produces sparser explanation compared to the standard LRP approach. And in general, the explanation or the complexity of the explanation is reduced. So we have sparser explanation and more mass concentrates indeed at the ground truth, and also the highest rank features fall in the ground truth. So this can be seen in table 1 and 2 that summarize our results. However, we also saw that the performance of the evaluation method depends on the model architecture. Therefore, or for this, I would again refer you to my colleague and her poster. From a qualitative evaluation, so PLRP produces clearer heat maps and logo plots. So I showed you the images in my figure 1, and you can also see here on the left the logo plots that for PLRP we indeed get rid of some of the noise. And yeah, so the noise is reduced while we maintain the most important features, and a closer look also reveals that the noise reduction indeed differs from simple thresholding. Maybe a short outlook. So we would further like to investigate the influence of this pruning threshold. So this could potentially be done by a hyperparameter tuning. And we would also like to study the sparser relevance attribution that we have in the intermediate layers to investigate the higher order feature or motive interaction that might be learned in those layers. Yeah, with this, thank you very much for your attention. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions, and thank you.